everyone, AMR back again with another video. So in today's episode, I'm going to be doing all of the matchups, projections, over, under, betting lines, those kind of things for this week 3 contest. As always, if you like today's content, feel free to like, comment, subscribe, helps me out a ton. But let's go ahead and jump into this. So for our first matchup here, you have Houston at Chicago. It's a noon game. Chicago's favored by 3. The over-under is 38, and I have the under in this contest. This is going to be a game where they are going to be running the football like crazy. I think that Dameon Pierce, as well as David Montgomery, on both sides of the football are smash plays at the running back position. I really am trying to steer clear of everyone else in this contest. I have no faith in the Chicago offense to get the ball moving. As you can see, like right here, I am a Bears fan, so this is coming at you with a little bit of bias, but also the fact that they have less than 20 pass attempts on the season. No, it's not true. They have less than 30 pass attempts on the season. So I really don't think that this is a good fit of a game to play Justin Fields, Darnell Mooney. On the other side of the ball, Davis Mills has been fine, but really Chicago's defense has really been their only saving grace. And I don't think that Houston gets right in this game against Chicago. Flipping over to the next game here, taking a deeper look here at some of the player projections of my models here. So you have Davis Mills. I believe he's going to pass for about 212 yards and a touchdown. Braden Cooks, I think he's going to get about 9 receptions for 97 yards and a touchdown. So I still think that Braden Cooks is going to be okay in the contest. Not someone that you really want to hyper target though. Justin Fields, 178 and a touchdown. David Montgomery, 102 and 2 touchdowns in this contest. And Darnell Mooney, 7 for 64. The biggest asset here really has to be the fact that Houston is not allowing a lot against the pass, so they are ranked 12th best, but they are ranked 27th worst against the rush. Chicago on the other side, 9th best against the pass, 21st against the rush. Just further validating that first point on David Montgomery and Dameon Pierce. So I really just furthering my point there on Dameon Pierce and David Montgomery being smash plays in this week's contest. Next up here, you have the Las Vegas Raiders visiting Tennessee Titans. Another noon game. Vegas is favored by 1 point. You have a 45.5 over under, and I'm going to go ahead and take the over in this contest. I think that these are two teams that really are desperate to get a win. Both of them are winless on the season thus far. I think Derrick Henry does pretty good in this contest here. You have Vegas, who is going to be without Josh Jacobs, so I think that Brandon Bolden is a smash play in the absence of Josh Jacobs. He's very, very cheap on FanDuel. I think he's right around 4,800. I'm going to go ahead and take the over, and I'm going to go ahead and say that Vegas covers this spread. I think Vegas wins this game pretty handedly. I don't feel like this is going to be a good game for Tennessee fans. So taking a look deeper here at the statistics of what I think this game is going to be like, Derek Carr, I'm going to say, is about 268 yards for 2 touchdowns. I think Josh Jacobs is not going to be playing, so keep that in mind. You need to bump up your I think that Brandon Bolden, however, gets probably about 75 yards and a touchdown in this contest. And then Devontae Adams, I'm saying, is going to get 10 receptions for 114 and 2 TDs. Darren Waller is going to go 8 for 74. On the Tennessee side, I have Ryan Tannehill going for 212 and a touchdown. Derrick Henry, 124 and 2 touchdowns. And Treylon Burks, 6 for 60. The biggest things here is that Tennessee sucks against the pass and the receiving portions. So they're ranked 26th against passing quarterbacks and 29th against receivers. This is just reiterating the fact that I think Derek Carr and Devontae Adams, Darren Waller are going to have a very good week. Then on the other side of the ball, you have Vegas, who is 28th against the pass, and Tannehill getting 212 yards is a pretty good game for him. He really doesn't pass the ball all that much. But the bigger thing here is that they're 30th against the rush, just smashing home that whole Derrick Henry narrative. Next up here, you have the Kansas City Chiefs at the Indianapolis Colts. Yet another noon game. You have Kansas City favored by 6.5 on the road, 49.5 over under. The fact that Michael Pittman Jr. has been cleared for this game makes me think that this is going to hit the over. I think Kansas City goes ahead and covers this line, which means that there's a good chance Indianapolis starts out the year 0-2-1. Really not the start that any of them wanted, but Kansas City just really seems to be that team in the AFC so far. The only team I really think that Kansas City has to look out for thus far is going to be the Buffalo Bills, which we'll talk about next. But before we go ahead and do that, let's go ahead and take a look here at the player projections. You have Mahomes. I'm saying he's going to surpass the 400 mark this week. I think he's going to go for 408 and 4 TDs. I think Edwards-Helaire is going to go just shy of 100 at 98 yards. Juju Smith-Schuster, 102 and 1. And then Travis Kelce, I think, is going to have a monster week, 164 and 2 touchdowns. Looking over at the Indianapolis Colts side, you have Matt Ryan. I'm going to say he's going to get 308 for 2 touchdowns. Jonathan Taylor, 124 for 1. And Michael Pittman Jr., 10 for 112 and 1. I think this is going to be a high-scoring affair. I think there's going to be plenty of fantasy points to go around, so make sure you're targeting all these guys. So biggest call-outs here. Kansas City is 31st against the run. So I really do think that Jonathan Taylor is going to be an awesome play here against this Kansas City defense. Also, Kansas City is not that great against the pass. So they're ranked 27th, and Matt Ryan has really struggled to get the ball moving. I think last week he had less than 200 yards and 3 picks. He's going to be bouncing back in this week's contest, especially with his star wideout coming back and that Michael Pittman Jr. On the Indianapolis side, their worst asset is the pass at 18th rank. Everything else is sub 15. So I don't see them having too much success outside of passing the football, which is why I have Mahomes going for over 400 yards and 4 touchdowns. Flipping over to our next game here, you have Buffalo at Miami. So this is a game that I'm going to be highlighting on this week. It's a noon game. Buffalo is 4.5 favorite. I think that they go ahead and cover this line, and I think that they're going to hit the over in this contest at 50.5. So 50.5 just seems like too low given the performance by Miami last week. I have no worries about Buffalo getting anywhere near that type of a over-under security. I think that Buffalo probably gets close to like 38 points in this contest. Buffalo has done everything that they can and more against every team that they've played so far. I think that Josh Allen's on a mission this year, and that mission is to get MVP. So let's go ahead and look at the player projection models here. You have Josh Allen for 434, 4 touchdowns, and 1 rushing touchdown. I think it's going to be a 5-touchdown day for Josh Allen. Devin Singletary is going to get 68 yards. Stephon Diggs is going to get 11 for 186 and 2. Another monster week, just adding to that total that Josh Allen's going to get through the air. Gabriel Davis, 7 for 88 and 1 touchdown. Going to be a little bit quieter of a performance in the terms of what we expect out of Gabriel Davis, but he is coming back off of that IR report. So you just want to make sure that he's being eased back into transition. Tua Tagovailoa is going to come to a screeching halt after a hot week 2, getting 198 yards. Chase Edmonds is going to get 64 yards. This is going to be a game where I really think they're going to be trailing early and often, so I'd really doubt that they're going to get much work on the ground. Tyreek Hill, 7 for 62, and Jalen Waddle, 9 for 84. I think that this Buffalo defense is just so damn good that they're just going to really struggle to get the ball moving. They're the number 1 ranked defense against the pass and the number 5th ranked defense against the run. This team's going to really, really struggle. Miami, I'm talking about here. And then as far as Miami defense goes, they are number 1 against the rush, which is why I don't think Devin Singletary really has all that good of a game. They're 29th best against the passing option, which is also why I think Josh Allen is going to go off this week. So play Josh Allen if you can, but try to avoid Devin Singletary if you can. Miami is just an all-out, like, I'm out. Detroit at Minnesota's up next here. You have Minnesota favored at 7.5. I think that they cover this line. The line is, and the over-under here is 51. I'm going to go ahead and say it's going to hit the over. This is going to be another high-scoring game. I think that Minnesota is going to have the lead early and often here. I think that Minnesota at halftime will be up 24-3. And then going into the second half of the game, I think Minnesota will take their foot off of the gas a little bit, and Detroit will start to come back into this game. And it's going to be a little bit closer than what we expect. But given that I have it covering that 7.5 point differential, I think it's going to be about a 10-point game. You could see it being right around like 31-21, which would both hit the over and cover that spread. So let's go ahead and take a deeper look here at the player projection models. Detroit, you got Jared Goff. I'm projecting at 328 and 2 with a pick. You have DeAndre Swift with 128 and 2 TDs. Very good week for DeAndre Swift, in my opinion. If you start him, you just have to be playing him. Amon-Ra St. Brown's going to be breaking some records this weekend. I think he's going to have 11 receptions for 143 and a touchdown. Kirk Cousins, 312 for 3 touchdowns and a pick. Dalvin Cook, 148 and a touchdown, and then Justin Jefferson, 10 for 131 and 2 touchdowns. This is going to be a game where I think that there's going to be a lot of fantasy value, and most of that's because Detroit is 30th against the pass and 32nd against the rush. So this is a team that loves to pass the football, and they have enough talent on the running game to really run it down their throat when they're ahead. Over on the other side, you have Minnesota, who is 22nd against the pass and 20th against the rush. I think that this is a very evenly matched defense to defensive wise. I just think that the Minnesota Vikings are just have so much more star power on the offensive side that's going to outweigh anything that the Detroit Lions can keep up with. So for our next contest here, you have Baltimore at New England. Baltimore's favored by 3, 44 over under. I'm going to say that Baltimore's not going to cover this line, and it's going to hit the over. Main reason is because I did not like what I saw last week out of Baltimore. They really had that game kind of sewn up, and then they just let Miami come back into it. I think Miami is going to win the affair, but I think it's going to be a sub 3-point game. I think that this could be a 1 or 2 point affair. Let's go ahead and look over here at the projection model. Got Lamar Jackson at 234, 3 touchdowns and 1 rushing TD. Rashad Bateman, 96 and a touchdown. Devin Duvernay for 64 yards. And Mark Andrews at 108 and 2 touchdowns. Now, switching over to the New England Patriots side, I think Mac Jones is going to get 306 and a touchdown. And Ramondre Stevenson is going to get 45 yards on the ground. Damian Harris is probably going to get right around like 80-ish yards as well. Big components here. So Baltimore is 31st against the pass. That is largely attributed to what happened last week against Miami. And then they are 17th against the rush. I think this is going to be a tough game for both teams. I think that both teams have a better defense than what the previous games I've just talked about do. That being said, I think that there's enough talent on both sides of the football. The one thing I worry about is whether or not that once New England gets the football that they consider like they just double down on that running game and start burning some clock. We already know Baltimore's a heavy run game, so this game could go by very, very quickly, and that's my only concern. Next up, you have Cincinnati at the New York Jets. Cincinnati's favored by 4.5, 43 over under. I'm going to say Cincinnati's going to hit this 4.5, but I do not think that this hits the over. I think I'm actually going to go on the under for 43. Let's go ahead and take a look here as to why that may be, though. So Cincinnati, I think Joe Burrow gets 343 yards, 2 touchdowns. Joe Mixon, 112, 2 touchdowns. Jamar Chase, 9 for 108 and a touchdown. And T. Higgins, 7 for 58 and a touchdown. Looking over at the Jets, you have Joe Flacco, 303 and a touchdown. Michael Carter, 56. Breece Hall, 72 and a touchdown. Garrett Wilson, 10 for 96 and a touchdown. And Elijah Moore, 8 for 74. Big things to talk about here is going to be the fact that the Jets are 25th against the rush and then 19th against the pass. I think that this is a get-right game for the Bengals. They really haven't had a great showing thus far. They played against a tough Dallas defense, and they're really just trying to get back in this win column. On the other side of the ball, Cincinnati's defense, despite like having some pretty poor showings through 2 weeks, are not that bad. They're 11th against the rush, and they're 8th against the pass, and they're 6th against the receiving core. So I don't really think that the Jets can try and get this ball moving. I think it's going to be a very hard game for them to get right in, and that's why I'm just going to like really buy into the fact that Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, Joe Mixon, all of them are just going to have a very, very fun, exciting fantasy week. So next up, you have Philadelphia at Washington. You have a bit of a revenge game for Carson Wentz. Philadelphia is favored by 4. I think that they actually cover that line, and they have a 50.5 over under. I'm going to go ahead and hit the over. I have little to no confidence in Philadelphia repeating that defensive onslaught that they had last week against Minnesota. I think that Washington has been one of those sneaky teams that kind of like lulls you to sleep and then comes back in the second half of games. I think that this is going to be a probably commanding lead in the first half for Philadelphia. And then you're going to see Washington kind of get some garbage time points. But ultimately, I do think that Philadelphia does win this game. I think they win it by a touchdown or maybe even 10. Let's go ahead and take a look at some of the statistics for this game. So for this game, I have Jalen Hurts at 234 and a touchdown and a rushing touchdown. Miles Sanders, 108 and a touchdown. A.J. Brown, 11 for 112 and a touchdown. And Dallas Goedert, 6 for 54. Carson Wentz, 324, 2 touchdowns, 2 picks. I think that Philadelphia secondary is going to be just good enough to confuse Carson Wentz and have him pass the ball to them. Antonio Gibson, 62 yards. Terry McLaurin, 7 for 77 and a touchdown. And Jahan Dotson, 6 for 64 and a touchdown. I really don't have much to talk about here beside the fact that I think that the Philadelphia Eagles are going to just try and run the ball down this team's throat. I think Washington is going to be behind, and it's just going to like play into that game script of Philadelphia has the confidence that they can prevent them from scoring, and they're just going to try and burn as much clock as they can. Philadelphia is a very good team. Washington has shown life so far this season, but I just think Philadelphia is going to have this game all wrapped up. So next up here, you have New Orleans at Carolina. It's another noon game. It's actually the last one on our docket here for noon. New Orleans is a favorite here by 3. I think that they actually cover that line, 40.5 over under, and I'm taking the under. This is going to be one of those games that's going to be really hard to stomach if you're going to be watching it at home. So for the stat line projection, you have Jameis Winston, 226 and 3 touchdowns. Alvin Kamara, 98 for 2. Michael Thomas, 10 for 104 and a touchdown. Baker Mayfield, 210 and a touchdown. Christian McCaffrey, 88 through the air. Christian McCaffrey, 88 on the ground and a touchdown. 6 for 75 through the air and a touchdown. I think it's actually a get-right game for Christian McCaffrey. And then DJ Moore, I have going at 9 for 96. So I think that Jameis Winston is going to be just fine in this week's contest, even though Carolina is 4th against the pass. I think that is just who they've played thus far. They played the Browns. Not really all that surprising in that game. So the biggest thing here is that Carolina is 23rd against the rush, and I think Alvin Kamara, even after nursing all of his injuries, does have a get-right game here. New Orleans is 8th against the pass, New Orleans is 13th against the pass, which is just going to... It's not a game that Baker Mayfield has a positive game script in. He's really going to struggle to get the ball moving. I think if you have New Orleans defense, they're a very good play. And then as far as rushing the ball goes, New Orleans is 8th best on the season, but Christian McCaffrey has had a little bit of a slow start, and I think that he actually breaks out in this contest. Now switching gears into the late window, you have Jacksonville at the Los Angeles Chargers, 305. Los Angeles is favored by 7 points. I think that they go ahead and cover that line. 48 over under, and I have it hitting the over. I think the Chargers are just going to stomp all over this Jacksonville team. Chargers are way too good on defense. I think that Jacksonville maybe gets 14 points, but I think that the Los Angeles Chargers gets closer to like 38, maybe even 41. It's going to get ugly in this contest. Looking over at the scoreboard here, you have Trevor Lawrence, 198 and 3 picks. James Robinson, 52 yards. Travis Etienne, 48 yards. Christian Kirk, 7 for 61. I think this is going to be one of those games where Christian Kirk kind of slows down. And then on the Los Angeles Chargers side, Justin Herbert, 254 and 2 touchdowns. Austin Eckler, 78 and a touchdown. Mike Williams, 10 for 91 and a touchdown. And Gerald Everett, 8 for 66. So I think this is going to be one of those games where we really see the Los Angeles Chargers get ahead and then try to just fizzle the game out. I don't think that the Chargers are going to try and beat a dead horse here. The one thing I will say is that Jacksonville looked solid against the Colts, but it was the Colts. So we kind of have to throw that game out because Jacksonville has just dominated that matchup in years past. So this will be a good sign to see whether or not that this Los Angeles Chargers defense is actually as good as what they are. The Jacksonville offense is nothing special. I think that this Los Angeles defense can definitely get some interceptions. They can probably get like a pick 6 in this game if I'm being quite honest. Next up, you have the Rams visiting the Arizona Cardinals. 325 game, Los Angeles favored by 4.5. I do not have them covering this line, and I think it's a 51 over under. I have it hitting the over. I think this game is going to be a little bit closer than what we expect. I do have Los Angeles winning this game though. Looking over at the stat sheet here, you got Matthew Stafford, 347 and 3 touchdowns. Cooper Kupp, 12 for 136 and 2. Allen Robinson, 4 for 48. And Tyler Higbee, 7 for 66 and a touchdown. On Arizona, you got Kyler Murray, 2 for 22, a touchdown and a rushing touchdown. Hollywood Brown, 8 for 54. And Zach Ertz, 7 for 96 and 1. I really do think that Arizona has a solid chance at potentially upsetting this Los Angeles Rams team. Los Angeles had a bit of a scare last week. It was a remarkable interception by Jalen Ramsey to seal the game for them, but it really should have never even gotten that close. So I just feel like against the pass, the Rams are 31st worst team. They have 25th worst against the quarterback, just boding very well for this passing game and Kyler Murray, which is really their strong suit right now with James Conner being kind of banged up. He's going to be into this week's contest. If you haven't seen yesterday's video about the injury report, I suggest you go check that out. But Arizona is 32nd against the quarterback this week. If there's a quarterback that is like a absolute banger start, it's going to be Matt Stafford here on the road in Arizona. Atlanta at Seattle, 325. Seattle is favored by 2. I do not have them covering this line, and it's a 42.5 over under. I'm taking the under, and I'm taking Atlanta to upset here in Seattle. Main reason here is I have Marcus Mariota going 218 and 2 touchdowns. Cordell Patterson, 86 yards and a touchdown. Kyle Pitts, 6 for 78, so we see him take a little bit bigger of a step onto that path that we all see him taking. Drake London, 7 for 91 and a touchdown. I think that he gets his touchdown this week finally. I think Geno Smith, 184 and 2 interceptions. Rashad Penny, 58 yards. DK Metcalf, man, it's been a really tough road thus far, and I think it's going to be another one. 7 for 57. Tyler Lockett, 6 for 48. I think this is going to be one of those games that no one is going to be watching. No one's going to want to watch it anyway. And I think that Atlanta does end up keeping this a little bit more interesting than what they're supposed to. They're 24th against the pass and 30th against the receiving core, Atlanta is, and I really don't see Seattle taking much advantage of that favoring matchup. And then on Seattle's side, they are 20th against the quarterback. I think that is just enough to give Marcus Mariota the flexibility he needs to get the ball in the hands of London and Pitts. Next up here, you have Green Bay at Tampa Bay, 325 game. Tampa Bay favored at 3. I think that they go ahead and cover that line, 45 over under. I think they're going to hit the over in this game. All eyes are going to be on this contest. You have 2 Hall of Fame quarterbacks, one being the greatest of all time, going up against Aaron Rodgers. It's going to be a really tough fought game. I think that this Tampa Bay team is going to have brighter days ahead, and that there's just a lot of guys being banged up. So take that with a grain of salt, and don't hear what I'm not saying. I don't think that Tampa Bay is going to be a bad team by any means. I just think that they're very banged up right now, and there's just better days ahead. Aaron Rodgers, 313 and 2 touchdowns. Aaron Jones, 48 yards. I have Alan Lazard, 6 for 71 and a touchdown, and Robert Tonyan, 7 for 64. Tom Brady, 328 and 2 touchdowns. Leonard Fournette, 128 and 2 touchdowns. Chris Godwin and Julio Jones, I really don't see either one of them playing. Chris Godwin's already been ruled out. Julio Jones was seen running routes on the sideline. I think that Scotty Miller is going to have a big game here. I think he's probably going to get about 8 receptions for about 88 yards, probably a touchdown. They signed Cole Beasley to the roster. I don't know how much he's going to be involved. There's just way too many things going on. Russell Gage is projected not to be playing in this game. They don't have Mike Evans. It's going to be a mess, but Leonard Fournette should be the only shining light for that Tampa Bay offense. And let's go ahead and move on to our next one here. So next one, you have San Francisco at Denver, 7:20. It's going to be Sunday Night Football. Denver is favored by 2.5, 43 over under. I have it hitting the under here, and I have Denver going ahead and covering that 2.5. Looking ahead, so San Francisco at Denver, Jimmy Garoppolo, 231 and 2 touchdowns. Jeff Wilson Jr., 88 yards. Deebo Samuel, 10 for 104 and 2 touchdowns. I think this is the game where we start to see Deebo take back the reins of a receiver and not just a dual threat as a running back. George Kittle's first game of the 22 season, I have him going 5 for 48. I think that because Deebo Samuel is going to be back in the action and getting a lot of the target work, I think that it's just going to... I don't know if George Kittle gets right against the Seattle Seahawks. So Russell Wilson, I have going 278 and a touchdown. Javonte Williams, 104 and a touchdown. Cortland Sutton, 91 and a touchdown. And then Jerry Jeudy, 5 for 44 if he plays. So a big if there. We have 2 defenses that are both very, very good against the quarterback. San Francisco, I think, is more dependent on the matchups. They played the Bears. I don't remember who they played last week. I think it was Seattle. So 2 really not really great quarterbacks, but I do think that they have the talent on the defensive side to back up at least a top 10 defense against the quarterback. Big one here is that Denver is number 1 against receivers, so that's kind of why I think they're going to shut down George Kittle. They can't shut down all of them. They can't shut down Debo and George Kittle. One of them is going to get that workload, and for this week, I really do think that it's probably just going to end up being a Debo Samuel show. So next up here, so looking here at the Monday Night Football game, you have Dallas at the New York Giants, and New York Giants are 3-point favorites. I have this hitting the over in the contest of 39.5. Let's go ahead and take a look here at the stats. I have Cooper Rush, 210 and a touchdown. Ezekiel Elliott, 64 yards. CeeDee Lamb, 7 for 48. And Noah Brown, 5 for 34 yards and a touchdown. On the New York Giants side of the ball, I have Daniel Jones, 305 and a touchdown. Saquon Barkley, 148 and 2 touchdowns, so a big week for him. And then Sterling Shepard, 7 for 85. So that's going to do it for today's episode. I think that the biggest highlighters on this week is going to be your Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen. At the running back position, I think smash plays are going to be your Derrick Henry, your Jonathan Taylor, your Dalvin Cook. I think pretty much all of the big name running backs are going to have very good weeks. At the receiving core, I think Jamar Chase, Cooper Kupp, Stephon Diggs, Debo Samuel, and I would go ahead and steer clear of the CeeDee Lamb. I think that's not a very good matchup for him this week. And then go ahead and check out Brandon Bolin, the starting running back for the Las Vegas Raiders in the absence of Josh Jacobs. And go ahead and temper your expectations here in week 1 or in week 3 of George Kittle returning to the game squad. As always, if you like today's content, feel free to like, comment, subscribe, but I'll catch you in the next one. See you.